Hi, my name's Molly. Welcome to Purpose, where we talk about just that. What's our purpose for being on this earth? Why are we here? Well, if you've been following along with me, you know what I think. We only have two reasons to be on this earth: to love God and to try harder and harder every day to get to know Him better and to love Him more, and to love each other. And this is hard stuff. This is not easy. It's easy to get caught up in our everyday life and work and family and what we enjoy doing, watching TV or fishing or bowling or whatever it is we enjoy. It's hard to get closer to God, and it's really hard to love other people. And God knew that. That's why He gave us the Bible to help us, to show us the way. And that's what we're doing. We're going through here, reading these stories so we can learn how to love God more and love each other more. And we left off in Genesis chapter 24. Abraham's an old man now. Sarah's gone. She died. And Abraham was worried that Isaac wasn't going to find a wife, or that he was going to take a wife from the Canaanite women because they lived in the land of Canaan. God took Abraham from his homeland with all of his relatives, and He asked him to go to the land of Canaan, which wasn't his home. That wasn't his people. And we're not in our home. This earth is not our home. Heaven is our home. And that's what we got to get back to. But anyway, Abraham didn't want Isaac to marry a Canaanite woman. He wanted him to marry a woman that believed in God. And so he called his most senior servant, the one that had been with him the longest, called him to him and said, "Got a job for you. I want you to go back to my family, back to my people, and find a wife for Isaac." That poor servant, he had to be freaked out about that. I mean, can you imagine having the responsibility of finding a woman for your employer's son to marry? Holy cow, no pressure there. What if he doesn't like her? What if she doesn't like him? What if Abraham doesn't like her? What if she won't come back? A lot of pressure. And the servant was like, "Oh, well, hold this wife train up a little bit." And he said, "What if she won't come back with me? Am I supposed to take Isaac there?" Abraham said, No. God brought me out of that land. He knew if Isaac went back, she might not want to leave, and Isaac might fall in love and want to stay there. And then he wouldn't be in the land that God took him to. So he said, No, Isaac's got to stay here. But if she doesn't want to come with you, she doesn't have to. But he threw in this little kicker: the angel of the Lord is going to lead you. They'll make the path easy. They'll guide the way. How many times in our lives have we thought, "Oh, that turned out easier than I thought," or "that wasn't quite as hard as I thought it would be"? And God's making that path smooth. Maybe He's got an angel out in front of us, guiding us. You never know. There could be angels leading us along the way. So anyway, the servant said, "Okay," and he put his hand underneath Abraham's thigh, which must have been what they did back then. Instead of doing a pinky promise or a pinky swear, they put their hand under their thigh, and he promised him, "I will go and find a wife for you." Well, this poor servant, who they haven't said his name, by the way, he must have been so stressed the whole way, even knowing there's an angel somewhere guiding him. He was probably like, "How am I going to know who the right person is? I don't know Isaac that well. I don't know her at all. How do I know?" So he started to pray, which is what we should do whenever we have a job to do and it scares us and we don't really know what we're doing, which is most of the time for me. We have to pray, ask God. He wants to be involved. He wants to help us. Pray to Him. Ask Him for guidance. And this servant prayed to God, and he said, "Oh, Lord, help me find this woman." So he got to the land. He went through Mesopotamia, or he got to Mesopotamia, and he went to the city of Nahor, which was Abraham's brother. We remember that from a few last video, I guess. And anyway, he got to the well outside of the city gates, which all the women in town would go out to the well once it was evening. They did that in the morning and in the evening when it was cooler to get their water, because they had to haul all their water back to their house, and that's a heavy job. So when he got to the well, he knew that the women would be coming out, and he prayed. He said, "Oh, Lord, help me with this. Whoever offers me a drink of water and also offers my camels a drink of water, that's who I'm going to choose." Because for a person to offer you a drink of water and to offer your camels some water, they've got to be a kind, loving person, right? So that's what he did. Those words hadn't even gotten from his head to God. He hadn't even finished his prayer, and out comes Rebekah to get some water. Rebekah is Nahor, Abraham's brother, his granddaughter. Her dad was Bethuel, which was Nahor's son. So Rebekah, unbeknownst to this servant, happens to be like second cousin to Isaac. She comes from Abraham's family, which is what he wanted. And so she came out to the well, and he asked her for a drink, and she said, "Oh, sure, sure." And right away she lowered down her jug and she got him some water. And she said, "When you're done with that, let me get some water for your camels." Bingo, we have a winner here. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And so the servant was so excited. He told Rebekah his whole story about why he was there and his prayer to God and that she came out. And he gave her a gold ring, and he gave her gold bracelets to put on her arm. Well, this kind of freaked her out, so she skedaddled and ran back home, told everybody there what just happened. Her brother Laban, who is kind of greedy and selfish, I know that because I've read the story. The Bible is a weird book. You can't just read it once. You've got to read through it and then go back. And your whole life, we have to keep rereading it, because the more we read it, the more it sticks into our head and the more it makes sense. Nobody can understand this the first time through. It takes going through it a lot. So I know from reading this before that Laban's kind of selfish and kind of greedy. So he saw that gold and he thought, "Woohoo, got one on the hook here." So he ran out to the well. He saw the servant, invited him back home to eat with him, said, "I'll take care of your camels. Come on back with me." And so they put a bunch of food in front of him and said, "Here, eat, eat." And he was like, "No, no, no, I can't eat until I've told you my story." So he told the family his whole story about Abraham and Isaac and how he was sent on this quest. And Laban, Rebekah's brother, and her dad, Bethuel, both said, "Well, this must be a mission from God. You must be a servant of God. This is what God wants." So, of course, if she chooses, Rebekah can go back with you and marry Isaac. And so he gave them lots of jewelry and all kinds of gold and ornaments and all kinds of stuff for Rebekah, like her dowry. And they were pretty happy about that. I'm sure there was some drinking and partying that night, and they all had a good time. Next morning, the servant woke up and he's ready to go. "Come on, Rebekah, let's go back." And they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait. Can't she stay here like 10 more days so we can say goodbye to her and she can get ready?" And the servant said, "No, we need to go now. God has blessed me on this trip and I'm not going to push it. I feel like we need to go back now." So they said, "Well, let's ask Rebekah what she wants." So they asked her, and Rebekah said, "Yeah, I'll go back with him right now." I don't know why. Maybe the home life wasn't great. Maybe she was anxious to get married. Maybe she saw it as an adventure. Maybe it was all of those things. But Rebekah agreed right away to go back with this total stranger and marry a man that she had never met before, which had to be very scary for her. So she hopped up on a camel and she brought all of her maids with her. I don't know how many there were, and everything that she would need. And they headed back home. Well, when they got close to the family farm there where Abraham lived, Isaac had just gone out to the field to meditate. I think this is code word for praying. I think Isaac learned from Abraham all about God. He witnessed that whole sacrifice when the lamb appeared. He had a strong relationship with God, and he was out praying, meditating, hanging out with God, talking to him. And because he had such a good relationship with God, his eyes were open to all these miracles. When we don't have a good relationship with God, our eyes get closed and we just can't see them. We can't see the miracles and the wonder that God has for us right in front of our face. So he saw the servant and all the camels coming back. And he saw, Rebekah in the distance, and she saw him, and she asked the servant, "Who's this guy?" And he said, "Well, that's Isaac, your husband." And she was like, "Ooh, he's a cutie." She pulled her veil down over her face because that was the custom. And Isaac ran to him, ran up to him. It must have been love at first sight. Excuse me. I've had a cold. Because Isaac took her right into his tent and made her his wife. And here's the really, really good thing, the really cool thing. It says here, "Then Isaac brought her into the tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her." Isaac loved her. Back in those days, you married for all kinds of reasons, and love was rarely one of them. It was a hard life. You needed a wife, a woman needed a husband. Oftentimes the families arranged the marriage. Love didn't have a lot to do with it. Usually they learned to love the people that they married. But Isaac and Rebekah fell in love right away, and I think that's cool. And then it said, "So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death." I think this is just the coolest story. First of all, that a tiny bit player, the servant, who doesn't even have a name, just the most senior servant, he's like a nobody in the big scheme of the Bible. But he had such a pivotal role to play in the whole story of salvation, He believed in God. He trusted in God. He prayed for God to lead him to the right woman. He didn't just say, "Well, looks like I get a vacation and a little trip." He put a lot of thought in it, and he trusted in God. And because of that, Isaac got the love of his life in Rebekah, which I think is cool. And then when it talks about Isaac being comforted after his mother's death, nowhere in the Bible does it say if you believe in God and you have a good relationship with him, life is going to be easy and nothing bad will happen to you. No. In fact, in the New Testament, it says just the opposite. You're going to have lots of trouble. People aren't going to like you if you have a good relationship with God. Life is hard. Sin is in the world. Bad things are going to happen to us. But if we have a good relationship with God, he will send people into our lives to help us, to comfort us, to make this life a little easier. And that's what just happened to Isaac here. Because he had such a good relationship with God, God sent him someone to comfort him, to make his life a little easier. And for Isaac's part, he just had to believe. He just had to have his eyes opened by praying and hanging out with God. So that's what we need to do. We need to keep our eyes open by praying and hanging out with God and talking to him all day long, asking him to help us when we fall down every day doing the wrong thing, whether it's gossiping or being lazy or greedy or selfish, whatever it is. Soon as we realize what we're doing, we just have to ask God to touch our heart and help us to love him the way he deserves. Help us to love other people. And he'll do it, and he'll send people to help us, which is so cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story of Isaac and Rebekah's meeting up. And we'll continue, learn more about Abraham and Isaac and Rebekah and what's going on with them. Well, I hope you all just have the best day today, everyone. Bye-bye.